Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Align with Anna podcast. I am so excited. We are here for the Inner Child Healing episode with Miss Heidi Harris. Hi, Heidi. How are you?
Hi, Anna. I'm great. I'm so happy to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
Yes, thank you so much. So, Heidi and I met recently through a fellow healer here in St. Louis, and we had like a coffee date, and then Heidi and I just hit it off, and we were like, you know what, we need to stay in contact. Like all these beautiful soul sisters, we 100% need to get together. And Heidi is a frequent flyer to my full moon parties, which is so special, and I just love the energy that you bring. And you have this like super motherly presence about you. I often describe you as like an angel. I'm like, hey, Heidi is an angel, literally.
Thank you, Anna. That is so kind. That makes me feel really a nice welcome. Thank you. And by the way, we had a full moon party last night, and it was amazing. And it was just so chill and relaxing, just what I needed. So thank you for that. That was so awesome.
Thank you, Heidi. Yes. Okay, so now I would love it if you would introduce yourself. So tell us a little bit about you and your story.
Okay, so I'll give you the short version. I have actually been a musician my whole life, and I am a violinist in the St. Louis Symphony. And I've taken some time this past year during COVID to develop more of my other gifts and interests. Many years ago, I got my yoga teacher certification and studied a lot in Santa Fe. But this past year, I delved into Reiki, as well as life coaching and also past life trauma release. And now I'm doing inner child healing. So I'm an inner child healing practitioner. So this last year, I've just had this amazing opportunity to weave all of these sort of healing arts. I like to call them the healing arts together into a tapestry that I am so happy to be able to offer people anything from this tapestry that they might need for me to help facilitate their own healing.
Beautiful, beautiful, Heidi. Yes. Okay, so we've got a couple different things in your tool bag. And so what really was the call to dive into inner child specifically?
Okay, so my own past, my own sort of, I think everybody has trauma from their past, from their childhood, and there's really a spectrum for trauma. So I think sometimes we feel like we can't really call what we experienced trauma because we're like, oh, maybe it wasn't that bad, but it can be called trauma, and there's a spectrum from mild to severe. So I delved into my own childhood trauma, and actually a couple years ago, quite some years ago, and last fall, I just felt that I had broken through so many barriers and done, I guess, enough healing for myself that I all of a sudden just started to write about it. I sat down one day with my computer and I started writing about it. And I'm like, I don't really know why I'm writing, but I'm going to just write. And then I realized that I was writing a workbook. And I was like, this is pretty cool. This feels good to just start writing a workbook. Maybe I can offer it to others. And then long story short, I developed my inner child healing workshop, which is a 6-week online workshop that I offer for people. And I'm just so excited that I finished my first workshop. Yeah, totally. Snap.
Yes, go Heidi. And I had a friend in there who said it was beautiful, by the way. So got to put that in there.
Thank you. Yes, I know who you're talking about. And she's an amazing woman, so strong. And she just did beautiful work during the workshop. Love her so much. And she's really stepping out with more authenticity and strength in her life. So yeah, I finished that about 2 weeks ago, I guess. And I'm going to offer my next workshop, my next inner child healing workshop next week. So I'm really excited for that to start. There's a few spaces left. But I'm really really eager to welcome the people who are joining. The first part of the workshop is actually a one-on-one chat with me for each person that's in the workshop. So I'll be doing those chats this weekend, and I get to know each person and welcome them. And it's very personalized. Even though it's presented in a group situation, I do get to know each person and kind of help them along their way.
Beautiful, Heidi. So you are a mother, correct?
Yes, I have 2 children.
2 children. Okay, tell us a little bit about your parenting experience.
Okay, so I have to say I was not the type of woman who had that natural urge to have children. I actually kind of didn't want children, which is sort of funny, but I ended up having children, and I think my children are just the most beautiful thing that's ever happened in my life. I don't know what I would do without them. I love them to death. I am totally mama bear, verging on helicopter mom, they would probably say. And we all learn from our own childhood, and we remember the things our parents did well and the things they didn't do so well. So as a mother, I felt very controlled in my childhood. So even though I'm a helicopter mom around safety things, I have been very, very hands off as far as helping my children, just guiding them, but never telling them, like, you need to do this with your life. You need to believe in this religion. This should be your career. I've been very hands off, just trying to guide them enough to help them make good decisions. But I'm like, look, this is your life. You need to decide what feels right for you. And I've tried more to help them tap in with their inner wisdom and their inner compass as their mother. That's what I've tried to do. So my son actually just graduated from college, University of Michigan. And my daughter is
Congratulations.
Thank you. And my beautiful daughter is a freshman at Mizzou. So she's just starting that part of her life. So yeah, it's really exciting to have children at that age.
Oh. And what is your experience so far of adult children? Is there a transition, right, between babies, middle school, and then they're in college? Like, wow, they're adults. And how does the relationship change?
I just think because being a mother gets better as time goes on. Every stage is special. Your little guy that you've got in your lap is so special, and your other older boy, just amazing. And just life just gets better and better. And it's so amazing and it's such a privilege and honor also to witness one's children growing and seeing who they are and how they blossom and how their authentic selves start to emerge and how they show up in the world. It's truly an honor. I'm very thankful that I am my children's mother, actually. So it's great to know them as people. They surprise me, they teach me, they make me laugh. It's just really fun, actually.
So sweet. And I remember being a mother is like nothing that you could ever imagine. Like, you could read all the parenting books in the world. You could be a yoga retreat leader. You could be the biggest hippie in the world. And then when you're actually pregnant and those hormones start flooding your body, it's like you have never seen your childhood so clear. So clear. And it's like, oh my gosh, have my parents always been like this? Were they like this when I was a baby? And like, oh my gosh, I definitely don't want to repeat that pattern. Or maybe there are some things that you love and you always want to keep that tradition going. It's so interesting to see grandparents specifically. So what does every inner child want? At their core, what are the children looking for?
Okay, so there's lots of things, first of all, but the number one answer I have, just as a general thing, is children just want to be seen. They want to be seen for who they are, and they want to be loved for who that person is, who they really are, and accepted. It's just and when I say they want to be seen, that's what I mean. It encompasses acceptance, love, support for who they really are. And then beyond that, just supported and guided. Children are born in my belief system, and nobody has to share this, but just sharing my belief system. I believe that children are born, with their own innate wisdom, their own soul path, and that as my children's mother, I am simply here to keep them safe when they're little. Like, don't run into the street, eat your vegetables, you know what I mean? That kind of thing. And as they grow into teenagers, don't do stupid stuff like we know teenagers might be tempted to do. So that kind of thing, keep them safe. But other than that, I feel like I'm here to be a support and guidance to children, including people's inner children, by the way, who are really no different than real children. Inner children are very much real children. They need support, love, guidance, sometimes advice, but often they kind of just know what to do.
I love that. Yes. Okay. So the inner child wounding comes when our needs are not met. Is that correct?
It does come when our needs are not met. And again, the spectrum of trauma. So in my workbook, I have 3 kind of basic inner child wounding scenarios. And we talk about this in the beginning of the workshop, just to sort of generally identify, okay, what was the wound to my inner child in general? And it can be a combination of these 3 things. One of the inner child wounds I label the privileged child, the quote unquote privileged child, whose wounds are often overlooked. So if you came from what on the outside looking in would be a good home, middle class, good schooling, all of that, sometimes people would think, well, you have nothing to complain about. Everything was fine for you, compared to somebody who might have had physical or sexual abuse, which I've encountered in my workshop. People that I've worked with do have these extreme forms of abuse. But in the quote unquote privileged child's home, it might be more like very under the surface emotional and mental abuse, which was what I experienced actually. And I have learned to call it abuse and to really recognize that what I went through was serious and harmful. And that's been part of my healing process, is just to acknowledge, yes, it was a type of abuse. So we work with that and just help people recognize it and then heal from it and move forward.
So beautiful. So something that one of my membership ladies brought to my attention was that not only do we have an inner child within us that is always with us throughout life, and in moments of chaos or anger or whatever, like the child comes out, right? It's like the child screaming for attention or affection or whatever the child needs, right? So one of my membership ladies had this massive download that we have a little girl within us and a little boy. So we have like the divine feminine and the divine masculine inner child. And it's like the inner child feminine wants to be free and creative and intuitive and dress up and really take care of themselves, be very like nurtured, right? And then the like little boy divine masculine within us wants to know how stuff works, like the structure. Like there was this one explanation of how a little girl will see a dragonfly and just awe at the magic of its life force. But the little boy might pull it apart or pull its wings off, see if it bleeds or not, to see like, how does this work like a machine? And to me, it was just like such a magical like metaphor of the difference between like the masculine energy and the feminine energy, but also the inner child. Like there's 2 pieces to the puzzle. It's like the yin and the yang always within your child. And so like addressing the balance of that, whether you needed to grow up really quickly and maybe you had to be like the big brother in your family, or maybe like the sister who was taking care of all the other siblings. What are your thoughts on that, of like healing the entire spectrum of the inner child?
Well, I think that's just absolutely brilliant. And I love how you shared that. And I actually haven't thought of it in that way before. I have done a lot of inner work and talked a lot with friends about the divine feminine, the divine masculine energies inside of all of us. And I do know about that, and I practice that myself in my own life, as do people I'm close to. So we talk about that, and it's very current as well. I think a lot of people are really learning about that and trying to balance that inside of themselves. But to look at it from the inner child perspective, it's really brilliant, because that should be looked at. We are all born with the male and female energies inside of ourselves, and the inner child wounding can probably, well, I'm pretty sure now that I think about it and you're mentioning it in that way, it can wound specifically maybe one more than the other. So just, I'm just thinking of my own history. I was really raised to be thrown into my masculine from the very beginning. I had a very strict mother, a very strict upbringing, was sent to boarding school with uniform.
Yes.
Yeah, and it's like I was I use the word trained. I was really been trained to perform and succeed and compete. And I've been very much in energy. So I've been actually, my practice has been learning to be in my feminine energy, and it's really happy when I do that, because I love to create and be flowy and receive and nurture, and that's actually more natural in many ways. So look at it from ground zero, the inner child, male, female energies, is absolutely brilliant. Yeah.
It was profound, because my childhood also, my mother used the word train when I was a child. And I remember being suspicious of that word right when she said it. And I was only 7 years old. And I was like, why are you training me like a dog? Like, that doesn't make any sense, you know? And that I too was like definitely pushed into my masculine. So much of my inner child healing in particular is like getting in touch with the yin and the rest. Like, we were just talking about this last night, Heidi. Literally, it was just like, you know, the masculine will have you working so hard trying to achieve and produce and be competitive, which, yes, is part of the human experience in our expansion, but also the receiving and the allowing things to come to us, for the universe to surprise us in unexpected ways. Like, that's the child's play, right? Like, oh my gosh, manifestation does not need to be so aggressive. It can be joyful and like magnetic. And I just think that, like, if we don't get those times to play, or just, you know, to just be and like appreciate, to have downtime. Like, downtime was frowned upon in my childhood. And so I'm specifically now making like a lot of downtime part of my deconditioning. So crucial.
I love that. I'm so happy that you're doing that. And we do have that in common. That's something we haven't talked about yet. And I love meeting women, particularly because I'm a woman. I love meeting women who share that story, and it resonates with me, because I think it is tough for women when you've been raised that way from a very young child. It really throws you off balance. But that's absolutely beautiful. Yeah.
Beautiful. So in your inner child healing work, do you use meditation? And how does that help you meet your inner child, communicate? Like, how can meditation be a tool to your healing?
So I actually, the workshop, I'll just lay it out a little bit and then answer that question within that. So the workshop is a 6-week online workshop, and we meet once a week on Zoom for an hour-long Zoom community chat session, and I guide them. And it's limited to 10 people, so it's a really safe, intimate space, and we do all get to know each other. So then in between the sessions, there's a week in between each session, and I provide a specific guided meditation for the people, the participants, every week, that corresponds with helping them meet their inner child. Some people have done it and they're like, oh yeah, I talk to my inner child, inner children, inner teenager, inner infant every day. And others are like, I'm really scared to even meet my inner child. I don't even know how to do it. So the course is really structured in a very slow, linear way to provide support, grounding, and safety, because the work itself is like so flowy and it can be ungrounding. So each meditation just is a little bit, we open the door a little bit to meet your inner child. And then through the 6 weeks, by the end, the meditations are very, very much deeper, taking you deeper and deeper each week into this relationship, into becoming the safe adult that you maybe didn't have in your childhood. And you step into that yourself, which changes you as an adult and helps all of these wonderful maturations and awakenings and authenticity happen in everyday real life as an adult by becoming that safe and mature and balanced adult for your inner child. We also have guided journal promptings that people do weekly. And then there's a little chat for people to have during the week. We were doing a text in the last one, but I'm going to use some type of app this time for just the sense of community, like for people to support each other in between. Because some people like would say, oh my gosh, I had the worst day and my inner child is screaming and sad. And they'd put it in the chat text. And then somebody would respond and say, you know what, I had a tough day too. Are you okay? And it's like this really safe, private support within the group.
Beautiful, Heidi. Yeah, I feel like, when you have the teacher right next to you, all is well. I'm getting it. I'm doing it. But then maybe right after the phone call or the next day, oh, I'm having a meltdown. I need some support. And so that group and that community is crucial. We're all in this together. I know that you guys are into this subject, first of all, and that I can openly share with you. That is so beautiful. Gorgeous. I also really loved that you added the different phases of childhood, because I know one of the most volatile times in my life was my teenage years, honestly. And I feel like that was much more traumatic than the childhood. And so I often think about my inner teen and I was like, oh, is she just rebelling right now? Is she coming out during this argument or this situation? And just giving, or even like the middle school years, how you're like pretty self-conscious and you're like, oh my, worried about, how you look or if people like you in the middle school years. Can you speak a little bit of that to the stages of childhood and like the different lessons that we learn in each stage?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I'm glad you brought up the inner teenager, because in the last group that I guided through the workshop, a couple of people specifically had the teenager come up as we got about halfway into the workshop. The inner teens showed up and they were really angry. They were just so in general, that's from what I've seen so far, the inner teen experiences a lot of anger, wants to rebel, feels rejected by their parents. It makes them mad. There's shame developing as well. They're being shamed for what they're doing because they're rebelling because they're hurting, and then they're shamed, and then they're angry. And so there's definitely there can be a theme for each age. That being said, anything and any emotion that comes up is okay. But this is the theme I've noticed so far. And then, when they're really little, the little ones, the little inner children, lots of times they're just scared and lonely. They're just simply scared out of their wits. They're lonely. They don't know how to voice what they need to say. They don't know how to really ask for help. They don't know how to protect themselves. And so when they get to be middle school, transitioning to teenager, they're like really mad, and they're like, I'm going to start protecting myself and being mad and get away from me. There's a kind of some violent feelings that come up, but it's from a place of self-protection. Honestly, it's not their fault.
Yeah, like think about babies, they don't have language yet. So feeling heard and seen is everything. And so they just make noise. They just scream, they just cry because that's all they know what to do. Yeah, so loneliness and oh my gosh, I thought that was so brilliant because think about like a baby and it's like mom is doing the dishes and she has to put the baby down because there's no one in the house and the baby needs to cry a little bit. Mom is over here doing the dishes feeling like she's traumatizing the baby, but then again, hey, we need to do the dishes or the laundry, and then the baby is sitting in the little area like lonely, afraid that mom has like actually disappeared. So what would you recommend for parents? Like how can parents like give themselves the love that they need and their children, but also realize that we can't always be everywhere at the same time?
Absolutely. So Anna, you're talking about a very normal, non-traumatizing circumstance. Although that being said, a baby might feel a little traumatized just because they are scared that mom isn't there for a minute and maybe at that moment they need them. It's within a normal situation though. Like an abnormal situation would be a mother leaving the child in the crib all day and definitely not changing the diaper, not listening to the screams. That's abusive. So you're mentioning a normal situation. And yes, that's a great question. Like within this situation, that's pretty normal. I still don't want to traumatize my baby. What do I do? So what I would suggest is I remember being a baby and not being able to speak, but understanding everything that was said around me. I think the baby hears the mother's voice, hears words and everything in the womb, and when they come out, they have a type of understanding for the words and the communication and the vibe, the energy around them. So for instance, let's say mom has to do the dishes. She's totally stressed. She's tired. There's nobody around to help. So the baby has to go in the pack and play for 20 minutes. Go to the baby and say, tell your baby, say, I'm going to put you here for 20 minutes. I love you. I'm coming back in 20 minutes. Mommy's just taking care of things so that the house can be beautiful and nice. And you can play by yourself. And I've got your favorite toys and you're safe. And I will be back in 20 minutes. And I'm still here. You can see me. I'm right here. You can see me. That kind of thing. Just talk to your baby. Let them know what's going on. Let them know it's okay for them to cry. It's okay if you cry and miss me. I'm sorry if you're sad, but I'll be back. Because then they also learn to self-soothe. And that's really important. Like we're not supposed to fix everything and be everything to our children. That's not self-love. But we can communicate and allow our children to have normal struggles. That's actually being a good mom and saying, okay, it's okay if you're going to cry for 20 minutes. I love you. I'll be back. It'll be okay. They need to scream. They can scream. It's okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Beautiful. So some of it is just part of the human experience, like you are not in the womb anymore. You are on your own. You have your own body. You're out of my auric field right now. And the self-soothing in that. And essentially, as the child gets older, it's like, do they have the confidence to, like enjoy their own energy and just know that they are safe, and to also like navigate other people's energy? I think that's more like the middle school where it's like, oh, we have friends now and this is what we do. And it's like, how do I choose my friends? How do I choose a romantic partner later on?
Yeah.
So interesting, Heidi.
Part of that is that we do need to learn the skills of being alone.
Yeah.
That's not a bad thing. And I was alone so much as a child in traumatic ways that it's been very difficult for me to learn to be alone. And I've healed from codependency. I mean, I have little flare-ups here and there I have to be mindful of, but that's why I really do support helping our children learn to be alone for little periods of time that are appropriate, that are age appropriate. It helps them to be okay on their own. And certainly this pandemic has shown us that if you are a person that can be alone, you were miles ahead of the game with this one. Yeah, total snap.
Yes.
If you can be
Yes.
alone,
100%.
for people who had a hard time being alone, it was
Whew.
terrifying and depressing. So
Yeah.
it's being alone in appropriate and healthy ways is a beautiful skill to help children learn, actually, in
Mm.
a loving, safe way.
Yeah, and I think that's why I always loved working with children, because I knew that everybody was a child. Like, I'm a former teacher, kindergarten through high school, and juvenile detention was my favorite. So those were the kids with like the toughest wounding, and I was like, okay, universe, I want the biggest, baddest kids out here. But I loved them so much. They were angels, and some of those kids treated me like the best, like, where I will never forget these children that were so godly, that were so beautiful, and were just really struggling to be seen and heard, just like you said earlier.
Yeah. They just want to be seen and heard, and have you look at them and smile and say, I like this, this, and this about you. You're really good at this, this, and this. And like, just like honestly acknowledge the light in them, acknowledge their gifts and the things that they're special at. It's not hard to do, because everybody's born with, I believe that, I mean, I'll use the word God, which you could say source or spirit. Like, everybody is born with God's essence. And when we see that in our children or in other children, it immediately, just that in itself is like, helps them to heal, because everybody has it and they just want to be seen.
Oh, so beautiful. Yes. Like, I remember, like, I'll go pick up my son from daycare, and all the little kids are like, mommy, mommy. And their eyes are like, they just like, they can feel my vibe. Like, they really can. And they're like, wow. Like, and it's just so beautiful. Like, I always tell people, like, if you're suffering with depression, or you're really, feeling ungrateful or whatever, just go hang out with some children. Literally, go hang out with them, laugh with them. They are so aware. They are like sponges, and they're just like brilliant. And so this is just gorgeous work, Heidi. And like, as adults, like, don't forget it. Like, you have an inner child as well. And that child needs a lot of love and affection.
Absolutely. And one of the things we teach in the work to handle in our child is heard and to comfort. And so then it helps us to enjoy life more and be more childlike in positive ways when we calm our triggers, and then we're like, oh, that's my inner child. What does she want to do right now? Okay, let's do that. But we can do it in appropriate ways, for the fact that we are adults now.
Absolutely, Heidi. Yes. Okay. Yes, I think about like the temper tantrums, like, if you ever see somebody who's like road rage, for example, and I'm like, oh, he's having a temper tantrum. I can see it from here. And oh God, it's just so brilliant to use that metaphor. I feel like it gives like a sense of humanity. It's like, hey, we're all in this together. We're all children. We're all trying our best. We all want to be loved. It's just beautiful, Heidi. Okay, so one question that I ask everybody on the podcast is, what is something that you have recently let go of?
Okay, that's a really good one. So in the past couple of years, I've let go of a lot of outward things. My life has changed a lot. And inward things. But right now, I feel like I am letting go of a lot of inner things, namely negative self-talk and like extreme self-criticism, and also always rushing and feeling like I never do enough and that I'm not enough. And I've been working on that for a while, but like, I feel like because I've let go and shifted so many things in my outer world, then now I'm really ready and able to kind of make that final release of those just habits that I developed because of inner child wounding, by the way, being subjected to certain things from an early time of my life. I need to and want to now just do the final release for the negative self-talk, the perfectionism, feeling I'm not enough, feeling I didn't do enough, and then just being a little easier and allowing life to to be more enjoyable. Like at the end of the day, I don't want to ask myself anymore, did you get everything done on your to-do list? Because the answer is always going to be no, I didn't. What I want to ask myself now is enjoy your day, and were you happy
Yeah.
with the things you did?
Mm. Yeah, and how we can still feel this way from childhood, right? Like this is how we were trained. Both of us was like, achieve. What did you do? Did you cross off your list? And it's like, as an adult, actually, I need to rewind and unlearn them.
Yeah. Yeah. So for me now, my life is more about what's the inner temperature? Is it happy, sad, stressed, rushed, anxious, negative, positive? Like, and so at the end of the day, I want to just say, what was the inner climate today? And I want it to be sort of at ease, generally happy, and not to sugarcoat anything, honestly. Like there is you can be toxically positive where you're denying anything that's upsetting to you. It's okay if you had an awful day or something terrible happened to say, today was awful and terrible. But just in general, I'd like to pay more attention to the quality of the climate inside of myself rather than what does my to-do list look like. I know I'll get everything done. I'm a responsible person. I'll do it. I don't need to beat myself up, in other words.
Beautiful, beautiful. Yes, I know that a lot of moms, a lot of women, just any human being is going to get some great tips out of this episode. Like super beautiful insights, Heidi. So now I would love it if you could share a little bit about your services and how we can reach you.
Yeah. So in the beginning, I'm a Reiki practitioner. I also do past life trauma release. So I don't do regression at this point, although I'm looking into trainings for that. So like the past life trauma release is really helpful, especially coordinated with like inner child healing as well. They kind of all merge together. I do yoga therapy, which is really helpful for people with PTSD or who have had sexual trauma or abuse, physical abuse. Is really, the yoga therapy is deeply healing for that, feeling safe in your body. It's slow movements on the floor. It's not like what you would do in a yoga class, and it's guided and it's one-on-one. And then I also do life coaching. So how I offer that to people, I'll just give an example. I have a client later today who is scheduled for a Reiki session. However, he would like to talk about some things going on in his life, and he would like to look at past life trauma release as well. So we're weaving the quote unquote Reiki session we're weaving in probably inner child healing, past life release, as well as life coaching. So I have all of that training, and I just, whatever someone needs, they might just need a Reiki session and that's it. And we always talk in a Reiki session anyway. That's how I offer it. But I love being able to weave something together that's really specific to what a person needs. So, and then of course I have my workshop starting next week, which is the inner child healing. So yeah, that's what I offer. And then did you say to mention websites and things like that?
Yes, yeah. Share your website. Where can we follow you? Yes.
Okay, yeah. So my website is Heidi'sHouseOfAlchemy.com. And that is no apostrophe or anything, just Heidi'sHouseOfAlchemy.com. And then my Instagram name is exactly the same. It's Heidi's House of Alchemy. And again, no apostrophe with that. So yeah, and you can contact me, you can DM me, or through Instagram, or you can message me through my website. And my website has all sorts of information about the workshop and the other things that I offer, and also my story, a little more about my story if you're interested, and things like that.
Beautiful, Heidi. Oh, thank you so much. These services are so needed. And let me tell you guys, when you experience Heidi, her aura, her energy is just so godly. It's so angelic, like so motherly, like incredibly nurturing. Like Really, it's a gift. It's a gift, the energy and the presence that you have, Heidi. So do you have any final thoughts, a takeaway for this lesson today?
A takeaway. I guess I would say, I really, really, truly believe that everybody is worthy of being happy, feeling loved, and doing work in their life that feels authentic and that does not feel like drudgery. What I hope that I can help to offer people is, yes, inner child healing, but also just coming to a point in their life where if they feel like their career is a little bit of drudgery and they're thinking of switching, or there's a relationship they need to look at and possibly shift or heal. I really like to feel that I help people in real life ways through these energy type of healings. So my takeaway would just be that I just think everybody is worthy of that, of living a life that they wake up to and say, I'm really happy with what I'm going to do today, with my job, with my relationships, and in general, life is pretty good. I feel happy, loved, safe. Yeah, that's my takeaway. It's kind of general, but that's all I can think of right now.
Yay, that's perfect, Heidi. Thank you. Well, my child is pretty happy at the moment. So this has been super beautiful, and I will take these lessons with me moving forward. So for those of us who are listening, please check out the show notes where you will find a link to Heidi's website and her Instagram. And thank you, Heidi, so much for being here and for the beautiful work that you do. We got to go, you guys, but we love you, and thank you so much. Bye.
Bye.